Right, I think I'll crack on because we've got a good number um, signed up now, and I think we've got about 25 at the moment, but we have about 40 signing up, which is a very good number. So, but I think I'll crack on for everybody's time as it's getting late. So, thank you all very much for attending, and really the objective of this session today really is to introduce attendees to Farnham Repair Cafe, and also give people opportunity to ask questions. I'll just start off with a brief presentation, and then we've got a number of repairers from the Repair Cafe and trustees on the line. So a number of member of the team will mention a little bit about why they're involved in Farnham Repair Cafe and what interests them, and then we'll open up for some questions. So I think without further ado, I'll crack on. So firstly, I'd like to thank the partners for this event. So that's the Farnham Herald, Farnham Wayside Rotary, Lions, Head, Shoulders and Round Table. So thank again for all partners for the event. So really, the background of Farnham Repair Cafe goes back to about 2014, when I was doing some work wearing my other hat at UCA, looking at the emergence of perhaps a new group of people that were making, modifying and fixing products, off their own bat. And that was really empowered by often video content, maybe not the best video content in the world, but more showing people what to do, but also the emergence of sort of places and spaces to enable people to make, modify and fix. And those included maker spaces and hacker spaces and various other collaborative workshops. And where I got introduced to repair cafes as somebody who's been involved in sustainability issues from a business and other point of view was when I was at the Hanover Fair in 2014, when I heard Martin Posner talk, who is the founder of the Repair Cafe Foundation in the Netherlands. And she introduced the idea of repair cafes, and I really hadn't heard about repair cafes at that stage. And I thought, oh, this is very interesting. And again, wearing my UCA hat, I thought, okay, well, why don't we do some sort of research into this area? And essentially, we undertook, the world's first sort of global survey on this, and then as a result of an event we called Makers and Fixers in Farnham, we then decided to start to look at, could we set up a repair cafe in Farnham? And we found the existence of, repair cafes that have grown substantially, and now there are something over 2,100 in the world, mainly in Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, and a group growing in France. But we've seen quite a significant growth in the UK. Prior to the pandemic hitting us a year or so ago, we'd held, this conference where we brought together UK repair cafes, and what we found was a very, engaging group of people who are really trying to drive things from a citizen's perspective. So again, mention here that we got involved, in now a third survey of repair cafes around the world. I don't have time to go into that today, but if anybody's interested, please email us and we can send that on. So we're sort of aware of how repair cafes are being set up around the world. So going specifically into Farnham Repair Cafe, it's a partnership between the Town Council, the Spa Church, and also the UCA, but it's specifically set up as a charity. our first sessions were organised in 2014, and we had a number of test sessions before we launched. But then in 2017, we became the first registered charity as a repair cafe. So we set a precedent. We had to sort of battle a little bit with the going backwards and forwards with the Charities Commission to prove that we fitted the charitable status, if you like. So, and we were able to do that. So 2017, we became the first charity in this space. And this, prior to the pandemic, crudely is what a Farnham repair cafe looks like. It's a community workshop, and we are operating in one part of the Spa Church, and a lot of activity going on. And prior to the pandemic, I think our last session before we had to lock down like everybody else, we had around about 100 people in the space that we would generally run from 10 o'clock to 12:30. So getting very packed. And one of our challenges has become, almost not marketing it too hard in the short term. So what we have is a number of repair workstations that cover, that have repairers who have skills, often multidisciplinary skills in electronics, mechanical, bicycles, clothing, furniture, and some bridge the two. And the background of our repairers is quite broad-based, from banking to toy making to senior leadership people in large organizations, to ex-Harrier jet engineers. Very broad-based background of people, people who are either retired, semi-retired, or often self-employed. We have generally, at least in the time prior to lockdown, we had around about a core group of about sort of 20 repairers. Although we've had over the years, about 80 different, around about 80 people offering their skills in repair or volunteering. And some have found that it's just not for them. So, but we ended up with this sort of core group. And to date, we've held 60 events. We've had over 3,000 visitors. We've completed over 1,300 repairs, and that represents a 66% repair rate so for products coming through the door, we repair about 66% of our products. So we've got a very strong, base to repair products. And actually, interestingly, from our global research, that is actually roughly the level that is achieved across the board, and which is quite a high level, particularly bearing in mind many products are not designed for repairability or dismantlability, but that's another conversation perhaps. But also what we do is we weigh every product that comes through the door, so that if those products are repaired, we can identify how much has been potentially diverted from landfill. And we're up towards about 4 tons diverted. And through some clever formula that one of our trustees has developed, we're able to then identify what the carbon savings are achieved through repair. Through extending the life of products, how much carbon have we saved? And we're upwards of about 36 tons of carbon. We have a very high satisfaction there. People enjoy coming to the repair cafe, and I'll come back to that just in a minute. And that's not 100% sample, but this is, perhaps 10% of people through the door. And the other aspect, which a majority of other repair cafes don't monitor, is the savings we create for citizens. So as a result of the repair of those products, we've saved citizens over £100,000 in that they've not had to buy a new product. And that's particularly important because a lot of our, our customers, if you like, are, over 60, and perhaps, money is tighter. We've also found some sort of quite unintended consequences of learning through the process, in that we found this emotional attachment that people often have to different types of products that have maybe been passed through as family heirlooms, or represent a particular time in somebody's life, and maybe they've, there's been the products become faulty, or something, furniture, upholstery has got torn or something. And so in a sense, what we're doing is also repairing those memories. The product repairs the memories from the past. And we've had, furniture and other products repaired, and people have shed a tear because it's reminded them of the past. So we've had a sort of bit of an evolution, in terms of 2014 to our charitable status. And we started off initially by partnering with a local transition town group. What became clear over time is that we had different aspirations, we had different skill sets. And we decided, 2016, 2017, we needed to take a different direction. And that meant looking at what, the options available. And I won't go through all those options, but we chose to go down the charitable route. So it's really important when setting these things up to have a sort of within the partners for any organisations to have a sort of position where everybody's on the same piece of paper. So a key part of the Repair Cafe is the front desk. This is where people, when they enter the Repair Cafe, they book their products in, and this is one aspect that we're always looking for volunteers, is for people not necessarily with research with repair skills, but people who are happy to introduce customers to the Repair Cafe. And traditionally, when the products are booked in and people are registered, after we weigh the product, etc., and various forms are filled in, disclaimers and whatever, is then, individuals are, in a sense, allocated to the different repair tables and desks that we've mentioned. And sometimes we see, collaborative repairs going on. Not so often, but sometimes that happens. And also we've got an important philosophy of what we call share repair, that people can't just go and dump their product and run off and get a coffee. We really like people to observe the repair process to see if they can pick up on skills and knowledge through observation. And again, as part of the indirect impact of this that we've identified through our research, I'd say there's two key issues that I'll bring out here. Is that absolutely people will generally come into the Repair Cafe. Their main motivation is coming in to get a product repaired. That it's as it says on the tin. People come in to get a product repaired, and then 66% of the time, based on our data, they will come out with a repaired products. Either directly or indirectly. If people if the repairers take the products home. But in effect, we will deliver, a significant number of repairs. But the other core element is that people really enjoy the social interaction, that local community dimension. So that social component is really important to the Repair Cafe. And of course, in the pandemic, that's one aspect we've been all missing, that social interaction. And that's what I think we're all looking to get back to. But we've also had a wider impact from our research, in a sense, by going through that observation process and encouraging, customers in effect to observe the repair process, it's often given people much more confidence in terms of trying to repair their own product at home. And you know, what we found is, as a result of observing the repair process and the advice given, etc., and perhaps also using videos, that, you know, approximately 35% of people have been able to repair a product themselves, and that's most significant in clothing and even quite interestingly in the electronics area. And they've often, you know, it's fairly neutral in whether they found it difficult or easy to do it, but they've, you know, 35% of people have been able to repair a product, which is quite significant, I would view. So in a sense, we, apart from the impact statistics we've shown, we've actually, you know, been able to support people in behavioural change, in that sense of helping people to get the confidence and skills to try and repair a product. And a number of those products are also then, that they've repaired from our research, are still working 1 year on or so. What we've also done fairly uniquely is to produce a repair carbon calculator. So we've open sourced this tool for any individual or any repair cafe to input the weight of items, and what this you know, software will do will then calculate the carbon emission savings from that data. And we've just very recently upgraded that to make it even more user friendly. What we've also done is to start to experiment with the use of 3D printing for repair. And prior to the pandemic, the trustees decided that we would invest in a 3D printer that we imported from, I can't quite remember where, but somewhere in Eastern Europe, that now has decided not to further export to the UK, unfortunately. But what we've been able to do through the use of 3D printing is to complete a number of customized repairs, for example, for handles, for umbrellas, or for lights. But also one of the the colleagues involved with the 3D printing, he also produced a clamp that could be used for the, you know, use in the repair stations. So again, unfortunately, we've not been able to do this since lockdown, but we have got this equipment there, and we'd like to do more of this. So of course, CV19 has created a big impact. We've not been able to offer, you know, those open repair sessions. So we've been forced to innovate and do things differently. And that's meant changing our approach quite significantly. And I'll come back to how our physical events have changed just in a minute. What again that has led us to do is to do various things. So we've set up quite an active now WhatsApp group between the volunteers and the repairers, where they're sharing knowledge and interacting. We've also set up a Facebook advice service whereby people can post in problems that we then provide advice. And we use the WhatsApp group in effect to crowdsource the expertise to then provide advice to people. We can't obviously offer the physical repair online, but we can provide advice, you know, one step forward. But again, what we were able to do through a lot of detailed work by a number of the trustees is to really think through the issues to do with COVID and to develop a COVID safe model. And between the lockdowns, we were able to offer 2 sessions of around about 20, you know, booked in cases. So in effect, what we did was to move our system online, and in effect, people will within a certain time period, they will book in their inquiry, and then we will assess within our repairer group if there is skills and expertise to complete that repair, and then people will be allocated a physical spot. And the sessions have worked very well, and we will be opening that again, all things being equal. We're targeting the second week of June for the next session. So we do have that physical interaction, but what we don't have is that social dimension as with an open repair cafe. What we've also done is to run a series of webinars to actually try and share our knowledge and experience more broadly within other UK repair cafes and others, and that's been quite successful. So where we are now is a little bit like this with the government regulations. We don't quite know what's going to, happen, how things are going to be phased, but we're certainly targeting, unless there is, any, further changes, to run the next session in June. And then thinking positively to the future, we are in a position where we'll be expanding the space within the Spire Church. We'll be moving into a larger space when we're able to offer the open repair cafe sessions again. And hence we are looking, to bring in new repairers and volunteers in preparation for being able to go back fully. And this is what we hope to get back to, particularly with the volunteers and the repairers, is an excellent dinner we held with the Repair Cafe volunteers in the Coat in Farnham. And pretty well every repairer and their partner attended our very good dinner. I'm forgetting, it must be about 18 months ago. So the bottom line here is you don't have a repair cafe unless you have the people. So it's important that, people are really important, of course, within repair cafes. So I'll stop here, and if we have any of our trustees or repairers on the line, if you want to highlight why you're involved in Farnham Repair Cafe, please unmute yourself and say something. I think we've got Dave's online. I think I saw.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah.
You want me to go ahead now?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a little story actually, and I was going to share a screen, which is probably a bit too complicated, but this is where my interest in tools started. I don't know if you can see it, but that's an old photograph of a shop my grandfather Eric owned in Stroud, which is what they called an ironmonger's shop in those days. And as a 6-year-old, I was allowed to run around the shop and experiment with all the tools and the nails and screws and so on, which I found just absolutely fascinating. In fact, I became really an ironmongery junkie, as my friends would call me probably. But that was the early beginning. But after that, my father, who had the same sort of interests, did a lot of DIY himself and decorating, and I learned a lot of skills from him. So we're talking now about the 60s, 70s. And I then learned that I could adapt some of the early skills I had to replace, repair, renew things with a greater ease. As a teenager, I became sort of bicycle mad and taught myself how to adjust the gears and the brakes and so on, which was probably just as well, because some of the places I like to go to were very steep hills. As I became older and had family, I then turned into IT support, as my daughters call me, from time to time. So fixing computers, toys, electrical appliances, you name it really. And I guess it was interesting because the skills sort of snowball. Some things you learn in 1 or 2 areas enable you to fix something in another area completely. And as I approached retirement a few years ago, only relatively recently, I actively thought, what things can I do to fill my time? And I was very keen to sort of use some of these skills, but wasn't sure how it was going to work. And just at random, I was searching through Farnham Facebook sites and realized there was a repair cafe, and the name instantly attracted me. And I just knew it was for me almost before I read what it was about. And I got in touch with Martin, who said, welcome, and the rest is almost history. The sort of things that I like are the community, both of the volunteers and the repairers. So it's not just repairing things for people, which is obviously what, as Martin said, is what's on the tin. But in fact, it's a great deal wider than that. And it's about the community of repairers, supporters, and so on. But helping other people who haven't got the skills or even the eyesight, or certainly not the money to fix things themselves. And once you fix something for somebody, and you didn't even realize it had a special significance, and see them leave in tears of joy, it just seals it for me. So really, I was going to summarize it, but I think I've said all the same stuff anyway. So it really is, it comes out of a sense of worth, which sounds a bit cheesy, to be honest, but it really is genuine, and it really does make a difference to us. But it makes a difference to the local community, as Martin was explaining.
Well, thanks very much, Dave. And yeah, there's a number of those things I didn't know about your ironmongery background there. That's
hopefully nobody noticed it says ammunition sales on the bottom. I think that was probably 1930s.
I don't know, is Helen or Clive, I think, or Anthony, I think I saw, and maybe Meryl. I don't know if anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Helen. I got involved with the Repair Cafe fairly early on through a chap who'd seen me knitting at an Amnesty International meeting, and he knew I was a knitter, and he said, "Oh, why don't you come along to this? Can you sew?" And I was like, "Yeah," but I'd only done a bit of soft furnishings and things, hadn't really been that keen on sewing really, but I had a problem with my hands and the knitting wasn't going so well. I came along, and a bit like Dave, I was absolutely hooked right from the start. It's for multiple reasons. One, I think I didn't realize I really enjoy showing people how to do things and sort of teaching them and involving them in the repair. To me, the sharing the repair thing's very, very important. And if I can, I will try and persuade somebody to have a go on my sewing machine, and I'll restrict the speed on it, so it doesn't race away with them. But I just love that. I'll always try and involve someone, even if it's just helping me seam rip or something that needs undoing, or putting some pins in or something like that. And as Dave said, it gives you a huge emotional reward, because you're helping somebody and you're transferring a skill. And the thing I love about going is there's this sort of hubbub in the hall, this real buzz of energy, and I love the fact that people collaborate on repairs as well across the different stations across the hall. So quite often we get quite a lot of sewing machines coming in where people have found them in the attic, or a relative's passed them on. And Sheila, who is just down here on my screen, she's a real expert on sorting out all the tension and the bobbin and all that kind of stuff. So she'll often collaborate with the electrical and mechanical guys to get a machine working, and that's a sort of wonderful moment when you hear it going. So yeah, I love it. It's just great fun. I've really missed it, actually. I really miss that once a month going into the hall, and you never know what's going to turn up as well. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating, and you get to meet more of the Farnham crowd as well. Lots of different types of people. We have, we were talking about people can't afford to do the repairs. Quite often we get people who could well afford the repair, but actually, they love the idea of it. They love the thought of bringing it in and actually being there while the repair's being done and being involved with it and learning something. So it's great. I love it.
Okay, and I can attest to that. My wife says the great work that Helen and Sheila does, and again the skills have been transferred. That she now uses. She's got really interested in sewing again and getting the sewing machine out. This wider impact, that's not just that one-off repair, but the skills and knowledge that are being shared more broadly. So is Clive, Anthony, Perry, Andrew, I don't know, is there any, or Merrill?
Yeah, my story is very similar to Dave. As a child, my father used to do some bits of electronics, and I used to look through his old biscuit tins full of components. And I actually know exactly what it was that attracted me. It was all the fancy colour bands on them. They looked like delicious sweets. I never tried to eat any of the components, but that got me into playing with them. And from a young age, I was doing that. And probably even well before I was a teenager, I was taking things to bits, and perhaps a few years later putting them back together again, and repairing them. And I always done that sort of thing for myself. I think I was living in London at the time, so I wasn't near Farnham, but I came across repair cafes in about 2014. I started going, and then when I sort of moved nearer to this area, I linked up with the Farnham repair cafe, and it's exactly the same thing. I enjoy the challenge of actually trying to find out what's wrong with something, and sort of showing somebody how you would go through diagnosing a sort of logical process of trying to find what's wrong with a piece of equipment. And the delight when you actually repair something, satisfaction for both the person who owns it and for myself. It is just fantastic. I love the idea.
So thank you very much, Andrew. And Andrew's one of the guys who attended a variety of repair cafes in the area. I think you also got involved in the one in Reading, and
Yes.
You also were in London and stuff. So it's so again we got a lot of different sets of skills and knowledge around the area. So it's excellent group of people. So do we have anybody else? I can see Clive there.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I'm late. I had three Zoom meetings tonight, and one of them was at 7, one was 7:30, one was 8 o'clock. I'm afraid I got them mixed up a little bit, so I've had to cancel the other two and come to this one. So I'm here now. So I'm sorry about half an hour late.
Yeah, so no worries, Clive. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about why you got involved in the repair cafe and what you enjoy about it.
Well, as a lifelong engineer, I was in the RAF for 30 years, and then I worked for British Aerospace as an engineer. So when I retired from British Aerospace, I felt it was a little bit underused, and I thought I still had quite a lot of knowledge to tap on, and I've actually fixed things throughout my whole life. So it was just a natural extension of what I've been doing for all my friends and relatives and that sort of thing over the years. When the opportunity came up to join the Farnham Repair Cafe, I jumped at it because I just loved fixing things. I've just heard the end of Andrew's little bit there, and I'm the same. It just gives me a great buzz to try and fix things, and I really get really upset if I don't. So fixing other people's problems and their equipment and all that bits and pieces they bring in is a great deal of satisfaction, and also keeps my skills up to date and going, I suppose. They're a bit out of date now. I've been retired 10 years, so it's nice to be able to keep on the top of not quite the cutting edge of technology maybe, but at least to keeping my hands working and my brain working with it and fixing things, which I think I've been fairly successful at, I think. You can tell me that.
No, like all of our repairs, incredibly 66% of the time repairs.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, we had, I mean, until maybe a year ago, one of our repairers was in his 90s and still repairing products very successfully. So again, the just keeping the brain working after retirement and giving something back, I think is something is a little bit of a sort of trend amongst a number of the volunteers and repairers. So have we got anybody else on that wants to was that pointed to Sheila? Does Sheila want to say something?
Not sure what I can say. My connection's a bit unstable, so you might lose me. So I missed some of Helen's, but I heard her mention me. I just really enjoy coming along. I mean, I think when we first started, it was quite quiet. And it was really nice to go and see what other repairers were doing and have a chat and socialise. But now we're so busy, we don't get the chance to socialise. So it was lovely when we had the Christmas lunch to be able to have time to talk to people.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, no, and absolutely a decision that we
different things that they've. Sorry, my internet's going funny. We have people coming back regularly with things that they need repairing, and I think sometimes they just want to come in, have an excuse to come in and see us.
Yeah, no, we've certainly. I think there are a couple of people who've maybe done 10 or 15 different sorts of repairs. So it's that, yeah, that social dimension is so important within the Repair Cafe. And we tried to do this a little bit online, but it's just not the same. And as I think Helen said, it's just that buzz you get. And I've been in situations through work where I've come back absolutely exhausted on a Friday night and a Saturday morning, and opening up, and it's it's more energy you get. Yeah, so things just all sorts, just amusing things can happen as well. And I think everybody has, apart from just the satisfaction of solving problems and helping people, it's just there's a fun element to it as well, and that the sort of interaction between people, and again, the social dimension.
Also, it's totally unpredictable. You don't know what's coming in, and especially, I mean, we're on textiles, but I mean, the different things we have, it's quite amazing. We've mended roller blinds, we've done teddy bears, soft toys. It's,
loads of bags.
Yeah. Bags. We hate it when the zips come in, don't we, Helen?
And sometimes people bring in very rather hefty leather stuff that we have to actually recommend they go and see the shoe repairer or something like that, because you're on a domestic sewing machine, you can't go through umpteen layers of leather, so occasionally we have to say sorry, can do. But most of the time one of the things I was going to say as well about being a volunteer is that I've learned so much. My sewing's got so much better because of learning from Sheila.
No, and I think there's that learning, but also that diversity of products. I mean, coming in, so we've had drones, we've had semi-antique clocks, although we had to make a decision not to take antiques because of the potential risks associated with that. So there's certain products we don't take, but we've done ceramics. We haven't done cats. I've seen a cat there. But we have done teddy bears, as Sheila said, and other stuffed animals, I think. I seem to remember.
A lion, I think.
A lion, yes. A rat
had eaten a big hole in its bottom.
Yes, yeah, that had been left in a garage. And we also had another one, which was just an amusing one there, which was a coffee machine, and it got what's the word? It got fused because the wasp had gone into the coffee machine, and that's what had stopped it working anyway. So I think hopefully.
Sorry, Martin, there's one thing. You sort of touched on it, but in fact, a big motivation for me, which I forgot to mention, was the sustainability, the avoiding stuff going into landfill. I think that's a big motivation for people who come in, and almost everybody says, I just can't bear to throw this away. I can't bear the thought of it going into a tip somewhere and polluting the local water supply and so on.
Good point, David.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is a motivation, particularly for the older generations. Absolutely do not want to put stuff in landfill. And once they see that this, in effect, service is available, people just thinks great. And for me, as somebody who's been involved in quite a lot of these sort of things over the years, often in environmental stuff, it's like pushing a rock up an isosceles triangle. But people just love this. And it's because they also get a direct benefit. They get their product repaired and also the environmental impact reduced.
One of my favourite moments was a couple of years ago when the BBC were there and recorded that guy who found some tapes on his reel-to-reel tape recorder and played back messages or voices from his childhood of 40 years previously, and he was listening to his own voice, and he got very emotional about it, and that was absolutely fantastic. That was really brilliant, that bit.
Yeah, I mean that was this sort of repairing the memories, the emotional attachments, bringing stuff back to life. You know, we've seen that on a number of products. So I think there's a couple of questions in the chat, and then we'll open it up more broadly. So, so there was sort of one question. So if people just sort of, if they'd like to ask a question, you know, please go ahead. I'll just mention this first one in the chat. So, have you had many young people in who may have learned some skills? With all electronics, they don't really have the under the bonnet experience. Don't quite understand the second one, but with the first one, we were hoping for more crossover with the students from UCA, because you've got the UCA students, textiles, product design, but we've not had so many coming across. I think there was maybe an African student who attended the textiles clothing session for some time, and she attended for some, because we were, what I was thinking originally is that, you know, some of the students would see the fantastic skills that they would never learn in their degree, that they could pick up those practical skills. We've had a few come in, and we had a brilliant young lad that it was fantastic to see his personal development, who worked on the front desk, who then he was able to help on the front desk through his Duke of Edinburgh's award. And it was fantastic to see him grow in confidence as an individual and then go off to university. And we've had one or two other young people come in, but it's not as significant as we would hope. And so there's another couple of questions. Whoa.
That's not for lack of trying, though. I mean, you've organised events actually at the college to try and get them to bring their stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, no, well, I think some of the because everybody's a volunteer, we've got a small team. What we've done is respond to questions from schools. I think we've at least gone in. I don't know if Anthony is still.
We went to the brownies.
Yeah.
Went to the brownies in Flensham. Oh, yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, so there is, you know, we have that wider impact there. But again, you know, we have to be careful. Everybody makes their own choice in terms of their time available. So, yes, you know, our demographic is generally tends to be over 55 in terms of customers, and probably a few more ladies than men. And it's probably because they've got bored with their husbands not fixing stuff, so they bring it in to get stuff done. So I think maybe I'll open it up for a broader set of questions. If does anybody, you know, have a question that they would like, you know, pose to the repairers or myself?
You got a question?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep.
There's another couple of questions in the chat, Martin.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of broaden I think I've seen a few questions coming in from one individual, so that which I'll pick up again in a bit. But does anybody else want to ask a question?
I'd like to ask a question,
Sure.
if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
It was very interesting to hear the history and the enthusiasm of the Repair Cafe. But are you trying to recruit additional repairers? And if so, what is the process?
Yeah.
For instance, do repairers bring their own tools?
Okay.
Is there a need to work on repairs outside of Repair Cafe hours? Who pays for spares? Does the customer sign a disclaimer of some sort, or what? What is the overall process and requirement?
So the first point is, yes, we are looking for volunteers. We may not be able to engage with everybody, engage them in the process in the lockdown model in the short term, but certainly when we get into the larger space, we're absolutely looking to expand the team, because we've got a sort of a natural transition. We've got one of the repairers is moving to the Netherlands, as far as I understand it. And that's for the other crew. Don't know. I think Cosbo's moving to the Netherlands, and you know, a couple of our repairers have retired, particularly one in furniture. Another one of our repairers has moved to Scotland. So we're definitely firstly looking for volunteer, repairers across all the product categories. The process is, there's, you had a variety of different questions there. So what we do is when customers come in, they all sign disclaimers. So we've got a process in place there to cover those sorts of issues. We also have a process for new volunteers where we ask them to fill in a little form on their background and ideally an informal sort of conversation initially. And the process, certainly in the open model, is that we ask, the volunteer repairer perhaps to go to sort of 3 or 4 sessions and then just sort of check whether it's still, if they're enjoying it and and it fits their expectation, and then they decide if they want to sort of continue. And generally people will come through, but some people decide, well, maybe, it's a bit complicated for them, and they just make that decision, and there's no pressure there. In terms of the question on taking products home, very much dependent on the individual, and that is something that we would probably I have to be careful about the language I use here, probably only authorise perhaps once people have gone through that first 3 months of trials, because we have to be really careful about issues to do insurance, and we take out insurance both in terms of product liability in the venue, and our insurance policy does cover repairs at home, but we're sort of, we run it in a fun manner. It's a charity, but we run it in a business-like manner. So we try and cover as many bases as we can. So did I answer most of your questions, Brian? I perhaps didn't cover them all. But...
Yeah, what is the position on buying spares that are needed
sure.
for a repair?
Okay, sure. So we will reimburse any spares that need to be bought, and the process that we would go through there it is generally a number of repairs, and please, particularly the electronics guys, please chip in if I miss something out here, is that sometimes, a spare will be identified through a search on the internet, and then we would request that the customer buys that and then brings that to the next session, and then that is fitted at the next session, so the customer would buy it. We also, if consumables or replacement parts need to be bought by repairers directly, we will reimburse that through the core funds. And another question that hasn't been asked, but perhaps will be asked by somebody, is how are we funded? So we're funded primarily by donations, and we get on average about a £10 donation for each repair. We also have small grants from the town council and other donations coming in. But and again, because of our collaboration and partnership with the Spire Church, there's a sort of a win-win agreement with them that we don't have to pay for the venue, but the Spire Church gets traffic for us into their cafe, so they get sales of coffee, and also there is, we will make an annual donation to the church at the end of the year. So we've got a variety of arrangements in place just to keep the operation running. So did that answer most of your questions, Brian?
The only other one was about bringing your own tools.
Yeah, right. So basically the repairers will bring their own tools. We have considered buying some tools and some equipment, but the issue we've had in the space we've had at the moment had been a lack of storage. We may well be able to deal with this once we go into the larger venue. So it's really, the repairers will generally bring their own tools. I don't do.
Martin,
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
thank you.
I was going to say, yeah, each repairer will, is used to your own. You're used to your own tool set and the tools that you've got, and it's actually much easier to use your own tools than it is to use someone else's tools. And two repairers doing an identical repair may use different tools to do it. So I have a toolkit that I use for going to Repair Cafe. That's got tools in it, and it's also got a load of spare components. The sort of, I know the things that I tend to need, like thermal fuses, and there's a bog standard sort of set of bits and pieces that you tend to need in repair cafes. As talking about repairing things at home, occasionally I'll get something that I know that I've got tools to do it at home, but it's not something I carry with me, and then I might take something home. But yeah, I mean, when you've been doing it for a while, you know which tools you need, you know which spare parts you need, you know that customers will come in with a light fitting that needs fixing, but they'll bring it in with a dead bulb, or they'll come in with some toys that are not working, but they'll arrive with dead batteries. Yeah. So you know that you need, those sorts of things, to get them going.
Also, Andrew, it's helpful because we do borrow each other's tools at times as well.
Yes, I do borrow your tools.
Well, it's because if you haven't got a widget to take something apart, somebody else is bound to have it along the way there. So it's useful from that point of view.
Yeah, Martin, there's a skills angle as well. I think Helen touched on it, and I know I've learned probably almost half as much as I've ever learned on top from other people in the group, and it isn't untypical. And there's some great photographs to prove it, where we'll have somebody soldering something, somebody stitching something, somebody sorting the batteries out, and somebody else shining a torch just to fix one item.
So
great, thank you.
Yeah, and there's that collaboration as Helen goes on, sometimes on the sewing machine. So I think sometimes we've had like 3 or 4 or 5 sewing machines going in, and there's been there's collaboration between the mechanical guys and the ladies on the clothing desk, and some of the repairs haven't just been problem-solving repairs. There have been, some quite lateral thinking going on in a number of the repairs I can remember. So I think there was another couple of questions here that I picked up.
Can I just say one thing, Brian, which is that I never take repairs home. So there's no requirement whatsoever, because when I sew in my spare time, that's for me, that's sewing for me. I've sort of made it very much, I don't take things home, and that's no problem. No one's ever had a problem with me only wanting to come in for that morning and do the repairs then. So just so you know that.
Thank you.
Meryl's been doing a brilliant job on responding to a number of these the questions in the chat box, and there's a couple of questions here in terms of volunteering. Please, if you would like to volunteers, could you just email my colleague Roz, who you should have got the email in the beginning, and we can just add you to the list of those that are interested. Because of the constraints at the moment with lockdown, we're only offering about 20 plus spots. So you just will need to be hot off the mark, because the spots will go like hotcakes in terms of booking in the slots. We're unfortunately constrained by the number of people we have in the room and the time available. So let's hope that as we move forward, the lockdown will enable us to expand the service back eventually to the open model again. So are you looking for repairer trainees? I would put that back to the repairers. I think the trouble is it tends to get so busy, but I think probably a way, please chip in, guys, is if maybe people were interested in observing the repair process with a view to building their repairs skills, that might be a useful way to start, because we do get very busy, and between allocating the time to train somebody versus a repair maybe get a bit tricky. but I don't know if ladies, guys on the call, you have any views on that? Would you be happy to train somebody if you could?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd love to have somebody sitting by my side and showing them what I'm doing, and transferring that skill across. I'd love that. So, Isabel, if you're interested in sewing, then please come along.
Don't get you up with mum and dad. I have no idea who you are.
Yeah, Martin, could I?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It's mum and dad here. Yeah, sorry about that. I had no idea this is my wife's machine. It's a miracle I've actually. We had so I work on the mechanical bench, and we had an 8-year-old lad came in with his parents to have something repaired, which we sat down. He very quickly started helping me with screwdrivers and stuff like that, and I have to say it was a great. And he went away. His parents were really, really pleased, and they, they said it was something that he'd suddenly become very interested in through the repair cafe. He did that. Yeah, it was like a light bulb for him. So I think absolutely. I'd certainly, for one, I would really, welcome any people who don't feel they've got a full skill set but would want to come along and help out. We can always use. We can fiddle around. We can sort out, how that would work. I'm sure. Yeah, certainly from my perspective, anyway. I mean, space might have been a problem, but with the new hall setup, when we move in, then that might help that.
Yeah, and that also sparks with your light bulb comment. When we ran a little Zoom session, we had this situation where a grandfather had been training his 11-year-old grandson in repair, and the 11-year-old grandson repaired a light online. He started at the beginning of the chat, and then he repaired it, and that was brilliant. But also that whole transfer of the skills element there was fantastic, and how again. He was really keen to do it and to show us he'd done it as well. So maybe we've got another couple of questions. So have we got any, our last couple of questions? Should I start on Monday? I'm not sure what that relates to.
Isabel. Isabel wants to get in on it.
Yeah. So I think, practically at the moment, we're just really preparing for the future. So if you are keen to volunteer either for the front desk, and we can always deal with also people for the front desk as well as the actual repair, please let us know, and we will add you to the list in the short term. What we are happy also to do is just run another special quick Q&A session specifically for repairers rather than those who are interested to bring products along. So yeah, just please contact us with if you're interested and the sort of skills you have, and then in due course we'll be back to you, and work through the process that we highlighted before. So have we got any last couple of questions or observations? Any of the repairers or volunteers want to say anything more?
I just put a message in the chat box saying we also always need coffee gophers as well as front of desk.
Yeah, we could do.
Are you calling me a coffee gopher, Sheila?
I think you need help.
Oh, Meryl.
You have an assistant coffee gopher. You used to have one, and he went off to university.
He did.
Yeah.
I was actually just going to do a plug for front desk volunteers, actually, Martin. So
yeah, sure.
So yes, if anybody, for me, I repair stuff at home. I wouldn't ever trust myself to repair anybody else's stuff, but I hate throwing things away, and I love being part of it. So I work on the front desk, and we're always busy and keen for people to help. So if anybody's up for joining in on that, and you won't just be a coffee gopher, that would be lovely.
I think Martin and Meryl, it's a really undervalued role, front desk, because if you want to give it a proper name, it's triage. And in fact, it really is important to the slick operation of the whole meetings when we're face to face, because quickly deciding what the problem is at a high level and working out what type of repairer needs to look at something, it really makes a difference to how quickly and smoothly the whole thing runs.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
And I 100% reinforce that. You know, it can get very busy, and it's managing a lot of different types of people and different sort of issues. So it's a really important part of the whole process. So we and those volunteers might have to do some coffee go through, but we all have to do it, you know. And they might even have to run off down the town to do some photocopying that's happened down again.
Yeah, done that.
Yeah.
So it's worth saying that even if you look at the electronics, where there might be 4 or 5 of us, we've actually all got different skills, and the front desk people do have an idea of that and know, you know, who to give certain appliances to. So yeah, that's important too.
And who hates Hoovers or toasters or
or coffee machines
or printers.
yeah. And again, if anybody on the call has you know, grandsons and daughters who are wanting to do a Duke of Edinburgh's award, that I now understand that you can do something like happening at a repair cafe, please get in contact with us, because our guy was so good, and we did approach a number of the sixth forms, but we didn't get interest, because in the old days I thought, you know, with Duke of Edinburgh's you had to go hiking in the hills, but now you can do you could happily help at repair cafes. And I think what we saw with him is just his growth in his personality and confidence, which, you know, would set him in good stead for the future. So that was a really positive thing to see. So any last questions or observations or thoughts from anybody?
No, I think a good chat.
So right, last 10 seconds. So well, again, if we haven't got any other comments, thank you all for attending. I hope everybody got something out of it. I've as always learned something new, you know, always learning from different people's backgrounds, because it gets so busy you don't get to know everything that everybody's done. So great. Well, thank you very much, and much appreciated. And we'll see you all sometime, virtually or physically. And Meryl, have you put your hand up?
No, I was clapping.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. I get confused sometimes.
We can all do it. We can all do it.
Yeah.
Or
we
can
physically clap as well. We might not hear it.
Or a thumbs up.
And we can wave, and we can go hurrah, hurrah. So anyway, so if you know, it sounds interesting to people, you know, please let us know. Please let us know your background and stuff, and we'll add you to the list. Sadly, we can't pre-book people into the sessions. It's very much like Glastonbury. You have to be there, ready on your computer to put your session in, because they'll go like hotcakes. So we will be towards the end of May, putting out the next session for people to book in, and we hope to be able to offer that on the 12th of June. Let's say all things being equal with this with the pandemic and this present government in place. So anyway, thank you all very much, and see you sometime in the future.
Cheers, Martin. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Martin.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.